The night seemed like any other in the world of late-night television. The audience at the studio in Burbank, California, laughed along as the host, renowned for his biting wit and politically charged humor, cracked jokes at the expense of public figures. But then, in an unexpected turn, he turned his attention to Barron Trump, the youngest son of the former First Lady and President. The joke was quick, sharp, and unmistakably aimed at the teenager. The audience's laughter was mixed. Some chuckled hesitantly, others shifted uncomfortably in their seats. The comment wasn't just a lighthearted quip, it was a jab that cut deeper, targeting the child of a public figure who had largely stayed out of the spotlight. Within hours, the clip was everywhere. Social media exploded with hashtags like #BarronTrump trending on Twitter and Instagram. Memes and reactions flooded timelines as supporters of the Trump family and critics of the host voiced their opinions. Some called the joke tasteless and unnecessary, while others defended it as just comedy. News outlets were quick to pick up the story, dissecting every angle and reigniting debates over the boundaries of humor. At home in Palm Beach, Melania Trump watched the clip in disbelief. Her son had always been her priority, and she had worked tirelessly to shield him from the chaos of public life. The insult wasn't just a blow to Barron, it was a blow to her as a mother. She knew this wasn't something she could let slide. Her instincts as a parent kicked in, and she began drafting a statement to address the situation. But words alone weren't enough this time. As the backlash grew louder, Melania made a decision, one that would send shockwaves through the media. She would file a lawsuit. But what she didn't know was that this choice would spark a battle far larger than she could have anticipated. The following morning, Melania Trump's team released a statement to the press. It was measured yet stern, denouncing the TV host's comments as inappropriate and damaging. While her words struck a chord with her supporters, they weren't enough to quiet the growing controversy. Melania wasn't just angry, she was resolute. For years, she had endured criticism and ridicule as a public figure. But this attack on her son was personal, and she intended to fight back. She turned to one of the nation's top defamation attorneys, a woman known for her no-nonsense approach and high-profile victories. Together, they filed a lawsuit against the host and the network, alleging defamation and intentional infliction of emotional distress. The legal filing painted a stark picture. The comment, though dressed up as humor, had crossed a line. This was no longer about free speech. It was about protecting a child's right to privacy and dignity. The lawsuit itself became a media event. News anchors debated whether Melania's case had merit or if it was simply a strategic move to regain relevance. Supporters praised her courage, calling her a fierce mother defending her son. Critics, however, accused her of using the lawsuit as a publicity stunt. Barron, meanwhile, stayed out of the limelight. Friends close to the family described him as a quiet teenager who rarely engaged with the media circus surrounding his family. But Melania's actions spoke volumes. She wasn't fighting for her reputation. She was fighting for his. The lawsuit had an immediate impact. Sponsors began distancing themselves from the late-night show, worried about the negative press. The host, known for his confidence and sharp tongue, appeared more subdued in his next few broadcasts. Still, he refused to apologize. Instead, he doubled down on his right to free speech, labeling the lawsuit as an attack on comedy itself. But the court of public opinion was already delivering its verdict. Even those who didn't support the Trump family found themselves questioning the ethics of targeting a teenager for the sake of a joke. The debate shifted from politics to a broader conversation. Where is the line between comedy and cruelty? Should the children of public figures be off limits? And when does humor stop being satire and start becoming harassment? As the case gained traction, legal experts weighed in. Some argued that Melania's lawsuit was groundbreaking, setting a precedent for protecting minors from media harassment. Others claimed it was a slippery slope, a potential threat to free speech. But one thing was undeniable. Melania's bold move had forced the nation to confront an uncomfortable truth, and the late-night industry would never be the same again. In the end, this wasn't just about Barron Trump. It was about something much bigger: the power of words, the ethics of media, and the responsibility of public figures. So now the question is, where should the line be drawn? And in a world obsessed with entertainment at any cost, are we too quick to laugh at things that should make us pause? Let us know what you think in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe for more stories that make you think. Because in the battle between humor and humanity, where do you stand? As the days passed, the story grew even larger, pulling in voices from every corner of the country. And the battle was only just beginning. The lawsuit ignited a firestorm across every media platform. Cable news devoted hours to panel discussions. Online forums buzzed with debates, and podcasts dissected the situation from every angle. The country seemed split right down the middle. On one side were those who applauded Melania for standing up to what they called bullying disguised as comedy. Parents, in particular, resonated with her decision, flooding social media with messages of support. Protecting our kids should never be a question, one viral post read, accompanied by a picture of Barron during his father's time in office. On the other side, however, the backlash was fierce. Comedians and talk show hosts rallied around their embattled peer, claiming that the lawsuit set a dangerous precedent for creative expression. Some argued that public figures, including their families, were fair game for satire, regardless of their age. If you can't take a joke, you shouldn't be in the public eye, one prominent host declared during a heated debate on his program. The conversation spilled out of the media and into coffee shops, workplaces, and dinner tables. In Los Angeles, college students debated the ethics of free speech during a campus rally. In a small diner in Topeka, Kansas, a group of retirees discussed whether the host had gone too far. The story wasn't just about Melania and Barron anymore. It was about what kind of behavior society was willing to tolerate under the banner of entertainment. Amid the chaos, the late-night host continued to push back. His monologues became more defiant, framing himself as a victim of censorship. His supporters cheered him on, but his critics pointed out that his jokes had taken on a sharper, almost bitter tone. The once charismatic figure now seemed weighed down by the controversy swirling around him. Networks felt the pressure too. Ratings for the host's show began to dip, and rumors circulated that executives were reconsidering their support. Meanwhile, Melania's legal team moved swiftly, submitting additional evidence and statements to strengthen their case. The legal battle wasn't just a personal fight anymore. It was shaping up to be a cultural reckoning. But no one could have predicted the bombshell that was about to drop, one that would change the course of the lawsuit entirely. When the trial began in Los Angeles Superior Court, it became the kind of spectacle the media couldn't resist. Paparazzi swarmed the courthouse steps, capturing images of Melania Trump arriving in tailored elegance, flanked by her legal team. On the other side, the late-night host entered with his attorneys, his face set in a determined expression. Inside, the atmosphere buzzed with anticipation. This wasn't just a trial. It was a referendum on modern entertainment. The prosecution opened with a searing argument, emphasizing the line between comedy and cruelty. They played the clip of the offending joke for the courtroom, the audio echoing in the silent chamber. Melania's lawyer described how the comment had deeply affected her son, painting a picture of a teenager caught in the crossfire of media sensationalism. "This is not about free speech," the lawyer asserted, her voice unwavering. "This is about a child's right to grow up without being ridiculed for sport." The defense, however, took a different approach. They leaned heavily on the First Amendment, arguing that comedy, no matter how offensive, deserved protection. The host's legal team presented decades of precedent, portraying him as a misunderstood artist pushing boundaries. At one point, the host himself took the stand, delivering an impassioned testimony about his career and how the lawsuit threatened to stifle creativity. The courtroom became a theater of clashing ideologies, with each side presenting witnesses to bolster their arguments. Barron's former teachers testified about his quiet demeanor and how media scrutiny had affected his schooling. Meanwhile, the defense brought in comedians who passionately argued that satire was a critical part of societal discourse. But then came the unexpected twist. A former writer for the host's show took the stand, and his testimony changed everything. In a shocking revelation, he admitted that the joke about Barron had been debated internally before airing. Some writers had raised concerns that it crossed a line, but the host had insisted on keeping it. The courtroom fell silent. This wasn't just an offhanded joke, it was a deliberate decision. And suddenly, the narrative shifted once again. With both sides entrenched, the trial was no longer just about Barron Trump. It had become a battle over the ethics of modern comedy, the limits of free speech, and society's responsibility to protect minors from public ridicule. Some defended the host's right to push boundaries. Others argued that comedy should have moral limits, especially when it came to targeting children. And at the center of it all stood Melania Trump, unwavering in her commitment to protecting her son. What had started as a single joke had ignited a cultural firestorm. And no matter the verdict, one thing was clear: the rules of entertainment had changed forever. In a world where satire and public scrutiny collide, where should the line be drawn? And when does a joke stop being humor and start becoming harm? Let us know what you think in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe for more stories that challenge perspectives, because in the battle between comedy and accountability, where do you stand? Public interest in the case reached a fever pitch. Every detail, from Melania's poised reactions to the host's fiery retorts, was analyzed and debated across every major platform. Late-night shows across the country avoided jokes about the trial altogether, worried about inadvertently becoming the next target of public scrutiny. But just as the trial seemed to be settling into a predictable rhythm, a new witness emerged, one who would turn the case and public perception on its head. On what seemed like an otherwise routine day in court, the atmosphere shifted dramatically when the prosecution announced a surprise witness. The defense team exchanged uneasy glances as a former employee of the network that aired the late-night show entered the courtroom. His name was William Carter, a former production assistant who had worked on the show for over 5 years before being dismissed under controversial circumstances. Carter's demeanor was calm but resolute as he was sworn in. As he began to speak, the tension in the room was palpable. He testified about the behind-the-scenes culture of the show, describing an environment where pushing boundaries often took precedence over ethics. But it wasn't his general observations that stunned the courtroom. It was the specific evidence he brought forward. From his briefcase, Carter produced emails, scripts, and internal communications, documents that revealed something far more damaging than anyone had anticipated. According to Carter, the joke about Barron Trump wasn't an off-the-cuff remark. It had been planned, debated, and ultimately approved by higher-ups within the network. Worse, some of the correspondents suggested the joke was designed not for humor, but to provoke controversy and generate ratings. Gasps rippled through the courtroom as the documents were displayed on the screen. In one particularly damning email, an executive wrote, "It'll get people talking. Controversy sells." For the first time, the focus of the trial shifted away from the host and toward the corporate machinery that had enabled the incident. The defense scrambled to recover, insisting that the host had acted independently and that the network's decisions were irrelevant to the case. But the damage was done. Carter's testimony had planted a seed of doubt, not just about the joke itself, but about the motives behind it. Outside the courthouse, the revelation sent shockwaves through the media industry. Headlines screamed about the toxic culture within the network. Several executives were placed on administrative leave, pending an internal investigation. The host, once the face of edgy comedy, now found himself isolated. His own employers were unwilling to stand behind him. But even as the tide turned in Melania's favor, the case was far from over, and the final verdict would carry consequences no one could have foreseen. As the trial reached its conclusion, the courtroom was packed to capacity. Journalists filled the gallery, their pens poised to capture every detail. Outside, crowds gathered, split between supporters of Melania Trump and those rallying for the late-night host. The stakes were higher than ever, especially after the bombshell revelations from William Carter. In their closing arguments, Melania's lawyer delivered a powerful statement. She didn't just argue for her client. She argued for every family that had been dragged into the public eye without consent. "This isn't about silencing comedy," she said, her voice steady and firm. "This is about accountability. It's about understanding that our words, especially those amplified to millions, have consequences." The defense, battered but determined, made one final plea. They warned that a ruling against the host could create a chilling effect on comedians everywhere. Where do we draw the line, they asked. At what point does protecting feelings infringe upon the freedom to challenge and provoke? The courtroom fell silent as the jury began their deliberations. After hours of intense discussion, they returned with their verdict. The host was found liable for defamation. The network was ordered to pay significant damages for its role in the controversy. The ruling sent a clear message. There was a difference between satire and targeted humiliation. The public reaction was immediate. Supporters of the Trump family celebrated the decision, calling it a victory for families targeted by media giants. Critics, however, warned that the verdict could set a dangerous precedent for comedy and free speech. But regardless of where people stood, one thing was certain. This wasn't just a legal case. It was a cultural reckoning. This wasn't just about one joke. It was about how far media corporations were willing to go for ratings, all of willing, and whether there should be limits on who gets caught in the crossfire. Some defended the host's right to push boundaries. Others argued that comedy should have moral limits, especially when targeting children. And at the center of it all stood Melania Trump, unwavering in her commitment to protecting her son. The verdict set new expectations for media accountability, and whether comedians, networks, and executives would think twice before targeting families. But the real question remained, did this signal a turning point for how the media treats public figures and their children, or was it a dangerous precedent for censorship? One thing was certain, the rules of entertainment had changed forever. Is this justice served or a threat to free speech? Let us know what you think in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe for more stories that challenge perspectives, because in the battle between accountability and entertainment, whose side are you on? The judge made it clear, the ruling wasn't an attack on free speech. Instead, it was a recognition that humor cannot come at the expense of a child's dignity. The verdict sent ripples through the media world. For Melania Trump, it was a bittersweet victory. She had stood up for her son and won, but the experience had been exhausting. In a brief statement to the press, she expressed her hope that the case would serve as a reminder to approach public discourse with greater care and respect. For the host, however, the fallout was severe. Sponsors pulled out. His network distanced itself. His show was placed on indefinite hiatus. But the case also prompted important conversations across the country. People debated the boundaries of comedy, the responsibilities of public figures, and the ethics of media sensationalism. In the weeks that followed, new initiatives emerged to address the toxic culture in entertainment. Comedians began reevaluating their material. Networks implemented stricter oversight. Audiences became more mindful of what they chose to support. And through it all, one lesson became clear. While free speech is a right, respect and empathy are responsibilities we all share. As the dust began to settle, the nation reflected on the deeper implications of the trial. Conversations shifted from the specifics of the case to the broader cultural questions it raised. Where is the line between humor and harm? How do we balance the right to free speech with the need for accountability? For many parents, Melania's battle was a wake-up call. It reminded them of the importance of standing up for their children in an increasingly digital and unforgiving world. One mother in Des Moines shared her thoughts in a viral video. If someone with Melania Trump's platform can face this kind of struggle, what does that mean for the rest of us? This trial wasn't just about Barron, it was about all our kids. For the entertainment industry, the verdict was a reckoning. Networks and production companies started reevaluating their approach to comedy. They realized that cheap shots and controversy-driven content came at a cost. The trial inspired a renewed focus on humor that challenges norms without demeaning individuals. On the streets, in homes, and across classrooms, people began to discuss the ripple effects of their words and actions. The trial highlighted how something as simple as a joke could spiral into a larger conversation about values, ethics, and respect. But the story's impact extended beyond Barron, Melania, or the host. It became a cultural milestone, a lesson that while we have the freedom to speak, we must also consider the power of our words. Humor can unite, but it can also divide. and the responsibility to choose wisely rests with all of us. So as the cameras turned off and the world moved forward, one message remained: compassion must always come first. The trial may have ended, but the lessons it left behind are more relevant than ever. It's up to all of us to ensure that our words build bridges, not walls, and that we challenge others with respect, not cruelty. Let's continue these conversations, striving for a world where we can laugh, disagree, and grow without tearing each other down. If this story resonated with you, share your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell to stay updated with more stories that challenge the way we see the world.